When you're adding and subtracting decimals, the first thing is you have to decide whether or not you're actually going to be adding or subtracting. And if they have the same sign, you're just going to add them both and then keep the sign the same. If it's subtraction, first you have to change it to adding the opposite and then decide whether or not they have the same sign. If they end up having different signs, you'll actually subtract them. So our first example here, we have 5.48 or negative 5.48 plus a negative 6.3. They have the same sign, so we're just going to be adding them. But the first thing that you really need to make sure that you do is that you line up your decimal. The reason for doing this is it has to do with place value. You have to add, think of it like money. You have to add pennies with pennies, dimes with dimes, and dollars with dollars. I don't think anybody would say that if you have a dollar and a penny, it makes $2. But if you're not lining up your decimal, that's essentially what you're saying. So you have to line up your decimal. So what I usually do is I'll write the first number in, and then I'll write the decimal right below it for the next number, and then just fill it in. And I'm going to put 0 here as a placeholder so they have the same amount of digits. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 8 plus 0 is 8, 4 plus 3 is 7. I'm going to drop my decimal. Notice how I'm adding like pennies with pennies, dimes with dimes, and then dollars with dollars. 5 plus 6 is 11. I'm going to keep the sign the same. Now what you can always do is you can do a whole number estimate. So all you do is add or subtract the whole numbers. That's the ones in front of the decimal. I have a negative 5 plus a negative 6, which is negative 11, and my answer is pretty close to that, so I must be on the right track. Here we have another example, but it's subtraction. Like I mentioned before, the first thing you have to do is change it to adding the opposite, because we can't really decide whether or not they have the same sign until it's addition. So I'm going to change this to adding, and then the opposite of 10 is a negative 10. I have 3.58 plus a negative 10. They have different signs, so we're actually going to subtract. However, when you set it up, the one with the bigger absolute value has to go on top. Now, negative 10 has the bigger absolute value. There's more negatives, so I know in the end my answer is going to be negative, but I have to set it up going this way. And like I said before, you have to line up your decimals. Well, this is a whole number. Think of it like money. That's like $10. So we'd write that as 10.00 minus 3.59. And I can't do 0 minus 9. I can't borrow from here or here, so that's going to become 0. These become 9 since I'm going to borrow from them anyway. And that's 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 5 is 4. I'm going to drop my decimal straight down. 9 minus 3 is 6. And then, like I said before, my answer is going to be a negative 6.41 because the negative 10 had the bigger absolute value. There were more negatives. Now, if we could do a whole number estimate again, even if we didn't do adding the opposite, we could see that 3 minus 10, well, we can't do 3 minus 10. You can't take 10 if there's only 3 of something. So we would have had to end up with a negative number. And if we do 3 plus negative 10, you get negative 7. My answer is pretty close to negative 7.